with the release of Handsome Toshiro, we have one question to ask. How handsome is Toshiro? So these are going to be my opinions about him. He just came out, so we still don't know his true potential. But let's take a look at him. So he is an assaulter. In my opinion, I think he's more suited for PvP. For PvE, doesn't seem like he would benefit you at all. But for PvP, I say his new freeze ability is very good. So looking at the growth rates, his strength is at a 5,000 base stat with a 5.0 growth rate. That is pretty high up there. I'm pretty sure all the new assaulters get around 5,000 stats for strength, and they all get around 5.0 growth rate. They haven't been releasing assaulters stronger than Yowatch, so it's very interesting. I'm more used to Naruto where every new partner is better than the last one, but Bleach handles it very differently. His agility, he's also pretty fast. 4,600 base stat, 4.8 growth rate. I think that almost makes him as fast as Yowatch. Might be slightly slower. Surprisingly for an assaulter, he has pretty high wisdom stats. So he has a base stat of 4,000 with a growth rate of 3.9. I think that makes him an assaulter with the highest wisdom. Still going to be very interesting to see Tessai because he was announced so long ago and he just got delayed by the developers. Now we have Toshiro come out instead. So it's going to be very interesting to see how strong Tessai will be. But this video is for Toshiro, so we're just going to focus on him. Now also as far as growth rate for his health, or power I should say, or it's called stamina in this game. 6,000 base stat with a 5.1 growth rate. It's going to give him a lot of HP. Overall I say his growth rates are pretty good, pretty decent. Now taking a look at his abilities. So his talent, Hyosetsu, increases his own strength by 20%, agility by 18%, and gives himself 10% avoid injury rate. Now the stat does say avoid injury rate, but in Bleach it's just translated to immune rate. It's the exact same thing. It's basically a defensive multiplier, so he will take less damage naturally. I'd say it's a very good passive. You definitely want your assaulters to be fast, hit hard, and as well as be tanky. It's either give themselves avoid injury rate or combo rate. Now looking at his skill, Sennen Hyoru attacks all enemies with a growth rate of 160%. Now compared to Mugetsu and Yowatch, it isn't that strong. Compared to, I think he's slightly weaker than Koga as far as his growth rate. But I say 160% is stronger than most assaulters who attack all. Now the key about him is this freeze ability that he adds on. Cast freeze on all enemies for 3 rounds, so he will always freeze. It's 100% chance. I was talking to Cosmo about it because it does say freeze all enemies and then something 30%. So he told me that the 30% means that enemies take 30% extra damage while frozen. Because the new mechanic is basically a permanent stun. As far as I know, nobody is immune to freeze. So this will make him very overpowered in the early game, especially if he can go first. Now, the problem is being he's an assaulter, so you can't expect him to go before supports. But if you have one support that could basically protect him like a Hikifune, or just have a very, very hard-hitting support to clear off the enemy team. So his freeze basically makes it so the enemy cannot take any actions. And when they get attacked, it breaks the freeze, but they will take 30% extra damage. So that freeze is very interesting, makes him a very good support or a very good assaulter, just because we haven't seen anything like this yet. It's brand new in the game. There's no counters to it. Now, another effects of him is that he removes the enemy support's fury by 10 points. That's basically a PvP ability, as well as his freeze. I'm not sure if freeze would work in Hollowed Souls or events. I don't think it would, or activities I should say. I'm pretty sure he's strictly a PvP assaulter. Then he also increases his own damage by 20% for 2 rounds. So that's a pretty good skill. The freeze makes up for it. Now we're gonna take a look at his skill. I must say I like his particle effects, except for the crystals. I really don't understand the crystals around him. But his skill does look very sick. As you can see how the freeze mechanic works, basically Toshiro will skill first, freeze the entire enemy team, then the next person to attack is going to get a 30% extra damage boost against them, and then the freeze will break. So this is a very good effect, and it's gonna be a pretty strong one if you could pair it up with the right people. So I wouldn't recommend the main going second. But looking at his exclusive skill, I must say his exclusive is very lacking to me. I don't really understand it. So it's okay. We're looking at his level 100. Randomly attacks 2 enemies with a growth rate of 350%. So it's basically like Berserk Renji, how he hits 2 targets. Now he also freezes them for 2 rounds, also taking 30% extra damage. He gives himself invincibility and restores his own fury by 40%. Now, I just don't see the point in his exclusive. First of all, for it to be for PvE, the freeze is pointless, the invincibility is pointless. It's only for the damage and basically restoring his own fury. So for Beast and Ryoka, I guess it's alright, but there are partners with way stronger exclusives as far as PvE goes. And for PvP, I would just say you're much better off keeping the attack all, freezing the entire team, because invincibility to himself, a lot of people can hit through invincibility if they have full mods, which are hard to get. But at the same time, if you're going to have a Hikifune on your team, you really don't need that. And the best part about it is that he restores his own fury by 40 points, but I'd much rather take his regular skill, hitting everybody and freezing everybody, than just taking his exclusive. Now, looking at his modifies, I must say his mods are really good. All these new partners have amazing mods. So his first mod gives him 12% extra physical attack. Definitely need that. It's going to make him hit a lot harder. Immune to disarm and immune to fury restriction. So he has immune fury restriction against Senjumaru, and then disarm is, I think, Hisagi and Shinigami Kensei. Certain assaulters disarm. So he has pretty good immunities as far as PvP goes. Now his 4th mod, I must say, is really good. Increase assaulters and supports avoid injury rate by 15%. So he gives assaulters and supports 15% immune rate. That is a lot. Plus, since Toshiro already has a 10% passive, himself would already be getting 25% immunity. So I must say, you can have a really tanky team around him as far as supporters and assaulters go. Then, when attacking enemies, he has a 50% chance to slow 2 enemies by 10% for 2 rounds. So he will lower their speed by 10% for 2 rounds. It's a random chance too. So, I mean, if he targets supports, that's really good. If he targets a Vanguard, it's not that good. If he targets assaulters, it's pretty decent. So I'd say his 5th mod is worth taking a look at. Now, his 6th mod as well. Being attacked has a 35% chance to freeze 1 enemy for 1 round. But instead of them taking 30% more damage, they will take 15% more damage. I say 35% chance is a pretty regular chance. I mean, you have a 35% chance of 100. I say that could occur more than once per game, or per round, I should say. Per fight, I should say. Said it wrong 3 times. So that mod isn't anything special, but I mean, yeah, let's just move on to the ultimate modifier. So when he is killed, he freezes all enemies for 2 rounds. Growth rate is 30%. Now, when I see that honestly makes him slightly better. So we all know Berserk Renji, when he dies, he just nukes the supports. But Toshiro, he freezes the entire enemy team. So for instance, you're slower, but you have a stacked Senjumaru or a support that could do high damage. So we'll pull Oyetsu no Maya, for instance. Now, the enemy has a Senjumaru that's faster than you. She skills, kills your Toshiro. He's fully modded. He freezes the enemy team. So that makes it where, even if his second support is faster and your Nomaya can survive with T1, your Nomaya will hit no matter what, as long as he's the fastest one on your team. So upon his entire team being frozen, Nomaya hits very hard. He probably has the highest. He has probably the highest Kido attack in the game, so he should be hitting the hardest. Plus, he has a dot on top of that, and he would heal back. So even if Senju took out most of his health, guaranteed, if he nukes an entire enemy team, with a cotton turn 1 plus the freeze to do another 30% damage, that is a very good mod. That is a very good mod. Now, looking at how you could get Toshiro, so you basically just have to pick him up for 40,000 gold in the Dragon Boat Festival. It's in the Dragon Boat race section, and upon purchasing him for straight up 40k, you get 40k dumplings. You could redeem something from that. But overall, we're gonna head to the conclusion of the video. So as far as the pros and cons go, for pros, I say he has a strong passive, good buffs to himself. It's great that he has an attack all, and it's pretty good damage, 160%. Now his freeze is definitely the biggest pro. His freeze can really make him overpowered, because we haven't encountered anything like that. It's basically a permanent stun until it's broken, and it has a lot of potential. I mean, it's gonna skip someone else's turn on the enemy team. It makes you go right after Toshiro. He also reduces enemy support's fury by 10 points. He increases his own damage by 20% for 2 rounds. He has pretty good stats, pretty good growth rates. Now, since, like I said, freeze is a new type of crowd control, there's really no immunities against it, so you just have to tough it out. Now, his modifiers are great, especially the ultimate one. Has a lot of potentials as well. It just basically makes him where you could allow Toshiro to die just so he could freeze the enemy team and make sure you win, as long as your support can do enough damage and just outlast. Now, the thing is, the person who attacks after Toshiro will do the 30% more damage thanks to his freeze. Now, we're going to take a look at his cons. So, cons being for all these partners is that their cost is always so much. I mean, 40k for him, I say his growth rates and stats are good to decent, but for 40k gold, I wouldn't really buy him. Now, it is also a support meta, and the biggest issue is that after Toshiro attacks, most likely your main will attack after him. It depends on what formation you run. I would never get Toshiro if my main was going to hit after, because the main just doesn't do that much damage. Now, Toshiro to me seems more of a utility assaulter, more of a supportive assaulter. What that means is that he's not really there for the damage. He's not going to be the guy that can clean up. He's the guy that sets you up, basically. I mean, you want him in an ideal situation. You have 3 assaulters, 1 support. Your 1 support being either Hikifune to buff damage and give your entire team invincibility, or being Namaya, giving everyone passively speed and just hitting hard. You could also go with Shinimu or Elegant Onohana. They both have good buffs towards assaulters. There's a lot of 1 supports that are pretty good. But what you want to focus on is your assaulters. So for instance, you have a Toshiro and you have a Yowatch, or you have a White Ichigo or Mugetsu, any assaulter you want. You would want Toshiro to hit first, freeze the enemy team, then you want your second assaulter to be the more stacked one. So you would have a very stacked assaulter that can hit way harder than Toshiro, just so he also does 30% more damage from the freeze, instead of Toshiro being the one that's more stacked. You just want him to be faster. As long as he can go before your more stacked assaulter, it's basically going to be a cleanup. But there's a lot of concerns about him. Being a utility assaulter doesn't really mean... I don't see him working out too good for 2 supports, 1 assaulter formations, just because your main will have to go after him, unless you're going to drop your second support speed and make your support go after Toshiro. But you have to drop a lot of speed for that to happen. So for me, I wouldn't get him if I was running 2 supports, 1 assaulter. Definitely go for somebody else that could clean up or hit harder. As far as 3 assaulters go, I'd say Toshiro is going to be a beast. Definitely. I know some friends that have some really stacked assaulters, so if you could have Toshiro go first and then let them hit after that freeze, it's gonna be very good. But overall, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I kind of had fun reviewing Toshiro. It makes him very interesting to actually think of what he's capable of. But hopefully you guys enjoyed and are looking forward to more reviews.